budget because it was, I took it out as a separate budget and put it in the general budget because it was running huge surpluses. And they did that to pay for the war and make it look like it was budget was balanced. We need to take when I work on the Pierce County government, we have a thing called enterprise funds. I would actually go to jail if I ever took enterprise fund monies and mixed them in with general fund monies. We need to do the same thing with the Social Security Trust Fund. It is a trust fund, and we should do that. And I think the Social Security Trust Fund can stand on its own if we properly fund it. This whole idea of this payroll tax cut is the wrong idea. If we wanted to give people a tax cut, we should have done it through the general fund, not through the Social Security Trust Fund. The Ryan plan is a very workable plan. I liked it. I read through it, and I think it's doable. That's one of the big unknowns to the future. Medicare is going to go insolvent much sooner than the Social Security Trust Fund. The Ryan plan was a plan I did support, and I do believe in that. And same thing with Medicaid. Medicaid definitely is rife with abuses and fraud and waste, and I think the states need to step up to the plate and get more involved in it. Thank you.
Well, certainly looking at the Social Security as an area to go after its entitlements, but when we look at the rate in which we are borrowing money to keep the nation afloat, under the Obama administration, that's a $1.6 trillion deficit. When you look at the breakdown of that, that's about $100. For every $100 that the president spends, that's $40 that he's borrowing on. I believe, when you look at Medicare, we've got the bow wave of our population of the baby boomers that are there. They're relying on the Medicare system to be there to help bridge that gap for having access into the healthcare delivery system. But the one that seems to get most ignored, also happens to be the backbone of Obamacare, is the Medicaid system. We can't afford to continue to add more and more people to that system and then turn to the states, which they are doing at this time, and say, you pick up the burden of paying that price, because that ultimately falls on the shoulders of the taxpayers of the state. We can't do it. So if we were looking at changes and modifications of entitlements, I would target Medicaid as number one, and then come back and look at Social Security.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll reverse the order, and Stan, I'll have you go first. And since we're talking about medical care, obviously Obamacare is going to be front and center of next election. If elected to the United States Congress, would you vote to repeal Obamacare? But more importantly, if you did, what would you replace it with?
When you look at the American healthcare delivery system that we have, we're number one in the world for our education system. We happen to be number 38 in the world for the delivery of care, and number 2 in the world in terms of the dollars that we spend on healthcare delivery. The problem we have with our healthcare delivery system right now is that it's clearly broken. Obamacare does not begin to address the issues. Obamacare was about insurance issues and reform, but not about true healthcare reform. This system is one that does not and will not improve access to care. It is far more costly. When you look at the businesses that are being burdened with picking up the cost of Obamacare, what we're finding is that more and more businesses that want to provide health care coverage to their employees have to give that up, because it's cheaper to pay the fine than it is to provide health care. So what we will end up doing in the end is getting rid of access or eliminating access to care and not improving it. I am absolutely committed. Now, as a physician who practiced 27 years in medicine and has a background in not only public health, private practice, academic medicine, and healthcare policy, this was the worst policy that we could have ever laid on the American people. I am absolutely committed to repealing Obamacare. I would replace it with encouraging the use of health savings accounts, and also take a look at how we can encourage through those accounts that would give patients and physicians more choice in their healthcare delivery system, and redirect the dollars towards delivery of care, not procedures and high administrative costs. So thank you.
Thanks.
Definitely repeal Obamacare. I think the question is not quite right in that what would we replace it with? We don't need a national health insurance mandate. I like the idea of the states going back and experimenting, even though a lot of people don't maybe like that what Mitt Romney did as governor, but Romney Care is actually working fairly well in Massachusetts. Not everybody likes it there. As you can probably tell from my accent, I have a lot of family back there still. And that worked for Massachusetts. I'd like the other states to experiment with the ways they want to do it. Back in 1992, in 93, 94, when you were state legislature, we passed a state system that probably wasn't workable, but it was what Washington wants and Washington gets. I think we really need to have states get more involved. I disagree with you on Medicaid. I think the states need to pick up a little bit more of the bill, because what happens when it's federal money, it's OPM, other people's money. And a lot of the states, right, they're all saying more Medicaid, more Medicaid, more Medicaid. It's free money from the federal government. I think when the states know that it's their money, they're going to be more tuned to making sure that it's spent well. So I'm all about federalism, empowerment of states, because whether I was on the school board or whether I'm on your county council for 9 years, I see too much of this, what I call OPM, other people's money. Councilmember Murray, don't worry about it. It's a state grant or it's a federal money. That's one of the problems we get. Money gets too far away from us and doesn't get spent well. Thank you.
All right. On our third question, Dick, you'll start, so you'll speak again. Although most of the 2012 election will probably focus on domestic policy, foreign affairs is something that you will have to deal with as a member of the United States Congress. Probably the biggest issue on the horizon is what we will do with Iran. And so my straightforward question to you is this. Would you vote to authorize the use of military force to prevent the Iranians from acquiring a nuclear weapon?
Yes, definitely. There's no more bigger threat in the world right now than the idea of the Republic of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon. They have persistently voiced that they would like to use that against either us or our ally Israel or even Europe. And so there's no more important thing on the horizon right now that we box Iran in, and for our allies over there in the Mideast. And we do that through a strong Air Force and naval presence in the Mideast that we need to maintain. And so if the then president, whoever that is, came to me asking for use of force, I would definitely grant that. Thank you.
Stan?
I would absolutely support the use of military force, but I would throw in the caveat that we need to stop the president's proposal of gutting our military. When you look at the recent proposal that he's put on the table of reducing expenditures for the military of $487 billion over the next 10 years, decreasing the Army by 100,000 troops, 32 brigades, stripping the Air Force of its 130 air transports and its 6 fighter squadrons, reducing the Navy of its frigates, and cutting deep into the remainder of our national defense. Taking a military that was designed to fight in 2 theaters, stretching it to 6 theaters where it currently operates, and then stripping it down to nothing does very little for our national defense. If we're going after Iran, we need to preserve the military that we currently have today. We need to ensure that they are equipped to do their job and get the politics out of this. If we're going to go after Iran and stop the proliferation of nuclear arms, then make that a target, give them the mission, and let them go do the job and get out of their way to do that. That's the one thing that I think we have failed miserably in the prosecution of the current wars that we have. And if we're going to go into another conflict with another nation, we need to be very clear and concise about the objectives, and then let the military do that.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Again, we'll switch order. So Stan, you will answer this question first. Something near and dear to the hearts of all Republicans is the debt ceiling. We had a big battle over the debt ceiling last year, and Barack Obama has suggested that he will be asking for another $1.1 trillion increase in the debt ceiling. If you were a member of Congress and you had to choose between increasing the debt ceiling and shutting the government down and all of the things that go along with that, how would you vote?
Number one, I would vote against any further increases on the debt ceiling. We don't need to shut the government down, and we should not be faced with those options. When we look at how we pay our bills, it's like any other business or family operation, and that is you learn to live within your means. And that's a message that we need to make very, very clear to government. Government is not the